Warren Buffett is one of the richest investors in history, but unlike many billionaires, he did not build a social media company, invent a new smartphone, or create a futuristic technology. He became wealthy by doing something that sounds almost boring, buying small pieces of good businesses and holding them for decades. But his story did not begin on Wall Street. It began with a young boy who was already obsessed with money. In 1930, Warren Buffett was born in Omaha, Nebraska, during the beginning of the Great Depression. Millions of people were struggling. Businesses were closing, jobs were disappearing, and families were worried about the future. But while the economy was collapsing, young Warren became fascinated by numbers, prices, and the idea of making money grow. As a child, Buffett did not wait for adulthood to start earning. He sold chewing gum, Coca-Cola, and magazines. He looked for simple opportunities that other people ignored. To him, money was not only something to spend, it was something that could be saved, invested, and multiplied. This idea would shape almost every decision he made later in life. By the time Buffett was a teenager, he had already started several small businesses. He delivered newspapers, sold products, and even operated pinball machines. He was not famous, he was not wealthy, but he was learning something important. Small profits can become large amounts if you keep reinvesting them instead of spending everything immediately. At just 11 years old, Buffett bought his first stock. Soon after buying it, the price fell. Many beginners would have panicked and sold, but Buffett waited. When the stock recovered, he sold it for a small profit. Later, the price climbed much higher. That experience taught him a lesson he would never forget. Patience can be more valuable than quick decisions. By the time he finished high school, Buffett had saved thousands of dollars. For most teenagers, that would have been enough to buy expensive things. But Buffett saw money differently. He understood that every dollar could become more valuable if it was invested wisely. He was already thinking years ahead, while most people around him were focused only on the present. Buffett eventually attended college, but he was not impressed by every lesson he learned. He wanted to understand how businesses were truly valued. Then he discovered the work of Benjamin Graham, an investor who believed that stocks should be treated as ownership in real companies, not as pieces of paper to trade every day. Graham's philosophy was simple: buy businesses for less than they are truly worth. Imagine finding a valuable item selling for a huge discount. If you understand its real value, you may be able to buy it cheaply and wait. Buffett became deeply interested in this idea. He later studied under Graham and learned the principles that would become the foundation of his career. After graduating, Buffett wanted to work for Benjamin Graham. At first, he was not offered a job, but Buffett continued learning, investing, and building experience. Eventually, Graham hired him. For Buffett, this was more than employment. It was an opportunity to learn directly from the person who had created the investment philosophy he admired most. Graham taught Buffett to search for undervalued companies. He looked at financial statements, assets, debts, and business prices. The goal was to buy companies with a margin of safety. If the investment was worth much more than its market price, there was room for mistakes. This approach helped Buffett avoid taking unnecessary risks. But Buffett eventually realized that numbers were not everything. A company could look cheap, yet still be a terrible business. Some businesses had weak products, poor management, or no future growth. Buying them simply because they were inexpensive could become a trap. Buffett slowly began changing his strategy and looking for high-quality companies instead. In 1956, Buffett returned to Omaha and started his own investment partnership. He collected money from a small group of investors and invested it using the principles he had learned. His results were extraordinary. Over time, the partnership grew rapidly, but Buffett was not chasing popular trends. He was searching for businesses that the market had misunderstood. Then, Buffett discovered a struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. The company owned factories, but its textile business was declining. Buffett began buying shares because he believed they were cheap. Eventually, he gained control of the company. At first, it seemed like a smart investment, but the business would later become one of Buffett's most important lessons. Berkshire's textile operations were difficult to save. The industry was changing, competition was growing, and the company's factories were becoming less profitable. Buffett later admitted that buying Berkshire had been a mistake, but instead of abandoning the company, he used it as a vehicle to buy other businesses, transforming it into something completely different. Buffett began acquiring companies with strong brands, loyal customers, and reliable profits. He was no longer searching only for cheap stocks. He wanted businesses that could continue earning money for decades. This was a major change. Buffett had learned that it could be better to buy an excellent company at a fair price than a weak company at a cheap price. One of Buffett's most famous investments was Coca-Cola. The company had a powerful global brand, millions of loyal customers, and a product people continued buying year after year. Buffett understood that strong businesses could produce cash for a very long time. He did not need to predict every short-term price movement. He only needed to understand the business. Buffett also invested in companies such as American Express, Apple, and many others. His approach remained surprisingly simple. He looked for businesses he could understand, companies with strong advantages, trustworthy managers, and the ability to generate cash. Then, instead of constantly buying and selling, he was willing to hold investments for many years. This patience became one of his greatest advantages. Many investors react to every headline. They buy when prices rise and panic when prices fall. Buffett often did the opposite. When markets became fearful, he searched for opportunities. He believed that market prices could change quickly, while the value of a strong business could continue growing over time. Buffett's wealth did not appear overnight. It was built through decades of compounding. Imagine earning a return, then reinvesting the profits, and earning returns on those profits again. At first, growth may look slow, but after many years, the results can become enormous. Buffett understood that time was one of the most powerful tools an investor could have. Most of Buffett's fortune was created after he was already 50 years old. This is one of the most surprising parts of his story. His success was not only the result of choosing good investments, it was also the result of allowing those investments to grow for an extremely long time. Compounding needs patience, and Buffett gave it decades. Despite becoming one of the richest people on earth, Buffett continued living in the same home in Omaha that he bought many years ago. He became famous for a relatively simple lifestyle. His public image was very different from the image many people associate with billionaires. For Buffett, wealth was not mainly about expensive possessions. It was about freedom and long-term security. But Buffett's story is not proof that every person can become a billionaire by buying stocks. He had exceptional skill, discipline, access to information, and many decades to invest. The lesson is not to copy every company he buys. The deeper lesson is to think carefully, avoid emotional decisions, and understand what you own before risking money. Buffett also made mistakes. He missed opportunities. He bought businesses that performed poorly. He waited too long to invest in some industries, but he did not need to be correct every time. A few excellent decisions, combined with patience, were enough to create extraordinary results. Investing is not about winning every decision. It is about avoiding major mistakes and learning over time. Today, Berkshire Hathaway owns or holds major investments in businesses across many industries. What began as a struggling textile company became one of the largest corporations in the world. And the transformation was not created by one brilliant idea. It was built through thousands of decisions, careful research, discipline, and an unusual willingness to wait. So, how did Warren Buffett become a billionaire? He started early, saved money, studied businesses, learned from his mistakes, and invested for the long term. But perhaps his greatest advantage was not intelligence alone. It was his ability to remain patient, while the rest of the market became excited, fearful, or distracted. Warren Buffett's story teaches a simple idea. Wealth is rarely built in one dramatic moment. It is often created through small decisions, repeated over many years. Save a little, learn continuously, avoid unnecessary risks, and allow time to work. The results may seem invisible at first, but over decades, they can become extraordinary. And that may be the real secret behind Buffett's success. He did not try to become rich overnight. He focused on making sensible decisions, again and again, for more than 70 years. While others searched for the next quick opportunity, Buffett trusted patience, discipline, and the power of compounding. From selling chewing gum as a child to leading one of the world's largest companies, Warren Buffett built his fortune by understanding a simple truth. Money can grow, but only when time, discipline, and good decisions work together. His story is not only about becoming a billionaire, it is about learning to think beyond today and building for the future.